Hello and welcome to Art Bites. My name is Jackie and I'm the Registrar of the Cedar Rapids Museum of Art. Today I'm going to be talking to you about Collection Confection, which is a social media series that you can find on Instagram and Facebook on the first Thursday of every month. In case you haven't seen Collection Confection yet, what it is that each month I take a piece of artwork from our collection and I make an art-inspired dessert of that piece. And I just want to tell you a little bit about the history of how we got this thing started. In December of 2019, we had a staff potluck at the end of the year, like we used to do pre-pandemic. And I brought an art-inspired treat to share with the staff. And the director, Sean, and I were talking about that. And he did like the dessert that I brought in, and it just kind of started a conversation. And I had suggested that next time I bring in something inspired by our own collection. And as the conversation went on, he said that he thought it might be a fun series to do and would I be interested in that? And I absolutely was. I thought it would be a fun challenge and a fun opportunity to show the collection in a different way that we haven't shown it before. And so talking a little bit about the history, looking into the future for this program, I don't really know how long I will keep doing this, but I do have a couple more goals that I would like to do before we wrap it up. And some of those are that even though it's collection confection, I think it would be fun to maybe focus on some different things because there's a lot of food art that you can do. And I don't want to change the name, even though it's confection in the name. When we do step away from sweets, I just think we would acknowledge that we were doing so for that month. But I think it would be fun to do something with fruits and vegetables. And I do make a lot of homemade pasta. And so I would like to try to do something with that. And so I think that that would be fun. I would also like to do something like a video showing the decorating part of it and just something a little bit different. So those are just some of my ideas of what I would like to do for it. So before I show you slides, I just thought it'd be a good idea to kind of talk about like how I pick the pieces that are featured. And it's kind of just like two ways and they're just kind of reversed from each other. So if I see like an ingredient or a recipe or a cooking video and it reminds me of something that we have in the collection, that's how it would be picked that way. And then if you reverse that, when I'm at the museum working and I see artwork that reminds me of an ingredient, a recipe, or a cooking video, I would choose it in that way. And so that also leads to, why do we do this program? Why do we think it's a good idea to share these pictures? And that is because, we have art in our daily life in so many ways, and so many of us like to do that. And I'm sure a lot of you have already seen these cooking videos and already think along these lines, but it's just, in case you don't think along those lines or haven't, it's just fun to show another way that we can have art be a part of our lives in many ways. And, it doesn't have to always be, you don't have to bake something. It'd be fun if you did, but sometimes it's okay just to have a conversation about something that you saw, or just think about it yourself about what you would do, or even draw a picture or paint something that's like a food inspired thing. There's just so many ways that you can add it into your own life. And many of you probably already do. And so I do want to show you some slides of some of the pieces that I have already made. I think there's probably been about 24 of them or so that have already been posted. And I'm just going to go through about half of those and just kind of talk about what inspired me to make those particular ones and maybe what went right or what didn't go right, and just kind of talk through them that way. And I just thought that would be fun to show you some of them, but if you want to see all of them, you can go back to our Instagram or Facebook page and see some of the past posts. And so give me just a moment here and I will share some pictures with you. Okay, here we go. So this is the first piece that I wanted to share, and this is also actually the first piece that I did make. This is Teacup by Clary Ilian, and I made a sugar slice cookie. And when this project started, I did know that this was going to be my first piece. And I think that's because just in working with the collection and in the storage, I had kind of already thought that this piece reminded me of a cookie. So it was a good one to start with and motivate me for the rest of the project. They don't always go really smoothly, but I did feel like this one went pretty smooth. And so at this time in my personal life, I was actually making a lot of sugar slice cookies. So I kind of had the technique down for this one. And I don't always, but this was a really good starter piece for this project. This one is Layered Mesh Basket by Chunny Chu. And I chose to share this one with you because I thought that this was a really freeing project for me on this one because it didn't look exactly, they don't always, I don't think any of them actually look exactly like the artwork. I should just say that, but I wasn't necessarily trying to do a one for one on this one. The color inspiration is there and, the amount of pieces and everything, but, Chinese piece is very nice and it's like a closed basket and mine is more of just like an open vessel kind of thing. And, it was a really good one for me to see that it's okay to just be loosely inspired by something. You don't have to try to make it exactly like the whole piece. And I think that is something I should mention is that sometimes I'm inspired by the entire piece. Sometimes it's a section of the piece. Sometimes I do just try to really go for that loosely inspired by, and you will see some of them that I do try to do it more as a one for one. And it just really depends on the piece and what I'm focusing on as I go through them. This is Color Ribbon Vase from Birth of Adventure series by Richard Hornby. And I chose this piece because at this time I had been seeing a lot of videos on social media about mirror glazing on cakes. And it was a technique that I had never tried before, and I really wanted to see if I could do it. And I chose this piece because, as you can see on Richard's piece, it's very like high gloss. It's very reflective, and that's what mirror glazing is. It's very reflective. And so I feel like I was able to achieve the mirror glazing a little bit. If you do go back and look at the videos online, just on any kind of cooking show, like series that you watch, like they will get very high gloss, and I did not achieve that, but it was enough that it resembled this piece. Well, I was going for more of a glossy effect, but I think it actually worked out okay for me in this sense because, the lighting and the camera picks up on some of it, but not everywhere. And that kind of did happen on my piece. And I was able to match some of the coloration and some of the ribbon effect, but not quite as detailed as Richard's piece. But I thought that this turned out well. I think it achieved what I was going for in the end. This is Underlit Clouds by Julia Catal. And I chose this piece because, Julia's piece, it's very nicely done, but when I was walking by it one day after this project started, I just kind of looked at it in a different light and I thought that looks like frosting, and hers is very smooth, and it also has a lot of layers to it, though it's a complex piece, but for this project it worked very well for trying to make a cookie out of it with a lot of frosting, and I didn't get quite the smooth effect, but once again this is kind of a loosely inspired by, not trying to do exactly a one for one. I think that the colors on mine did match fairly well. I did end up with a darker blue, obviously, up here, but I think otherwise it looked pretty good. I was happy with down here because naturally I kind of was able to get kind of the effect that she got down here, and so I was pleased with that. And I just think her piece is very lovely, and I thought this one was a win for me. I think it turned out and they complement each other pretty well. So this one was focusing on the museum's architecture. And I definitely chose it though for the columns, the purple and red columns that are in our winter garden. And so since they're on the inside of the building, I did think it would be nice to do a layer cake to have that effect. And it definitely needed to be the layer cake so that you reveal the inside of the cake, like the inside of the building. And I didn't want to do a lot of details on the outside of the building. So I kind of instead just tried to match, the neutral color of the beige, the blue columns. I put a little bit of the standing sugar down here to kind of be a general plant type thing, but not focusing on the trees and things like that. I probably could have. It might have been nice to do the trees looking at it now, but for this, I mostly focused on the arches on the outside, right here for the outside symbol, I guess, and then for the inside reveal of the cake. And so I thought that this one was fun. If I did do it again, I might add some trees to the outside of it, but I think it kind of achieved what I was looking for. Okay, so this one I chose because it was 3 different pieces, and I thought that that would be fun to share. And also, the studio is important to us as well. So my piece right here is a take on Grant Wood's 5 Turney Alley Christmas card, which is his take on the studio. And so I do like this because we get to see a print and the studio and just add even more art into this one. And so for mine, I had originally thought of making a gingerbread house of the studio. And I did change that idea when I did remember about like, it would be fun to use this print as well. And so I stuck with gingerbread, just not like a full house. And then when it was still dough, I kind of etched my design in. And then when I baked it, it kind of rose a little bit more than I was thinking it would. It kind of pushed my impression out a little bit. So I did take some food coloring and kind of like highlight that a little bit. And then I put some royal icing for the snow. And I do like how this one turned out. I think a whole gingerbread house could have been kind of cool too. Maybe somebody else can try to do that and share it with us. Okay, this is She Found It All So Distasteful by Bill Staymates. I chose this one for the chandelier. And, Bill did a whole series of chandeliers in his artwork that I think are just fantastic. I like them a lot, and this is the one that we have in our collection. Starting out on this, I had no idea if I would be able to even attempt his wolf that's at the bottom, but I really like this chandelier, so I was going to go ahead and try for that. And looking at it at that time, I really thought that a blackberry would represent this chandelier well. And so I started with that. I did my sugar cookie, covered it in royal icing, let that dry. And then I stuck my chandelier on. And then I tried to do a little bit of the background inspired from what Bill has in the background of his. And then I tried my wolf. I mean, like I said, I started from the top and worked my way down because I was not sure what this was going to look like, but I wanted this to work out very much. And I think that it worked out enough to be able to share. And my daughter actually was helping me and doing her own project alongside. And I thought that that was fun part of the project too. And maybe you can do that, do an activity with somebody and make a night out of it. But I thought hers turned out very cute. And so I wanted to share that with everybody because she worked pretty hard on that. This piece is Sales New England Village by Jonas Lai. And I chose this piece because it is actually the piece out of everything that I've ever made that has taken the longest. And I was happy with how it turned out. I really hadn't made a cheesecake before. This was a long time ago before this cheesecake shortage that we're hearing about now. And I really hadn't worked with gelatin too much. So I think that's part of the reason why this one took longer, just unfamiliar techniques basically. And so this one is not exactly like his piece. It's kind of a loosely inspired as well. Originally in my plan, I wasn't going to use this kind of like graham cracker crust shore, but I ended up doing that because when I took my cheesecake out of my springform pan, it sunk a little bit and I didn't like how that looked. So I had to improvise a little bit. That's okay if you have to do that in your project too, because it's what you want to make of it. You know, you're doing an inspired by dish or drawing or painting or something like that. So it doesn't have to be exactly like it. And it's okay. Sometimes you do just have to roll with it and improvise a little bit. So that's okay. So this is Woman with Plants by Grant Wood. I chose to share this piece with you because initially when I started this project, I liked the snake plant. And I had thought that maybe I would do like those like dirt plants that you can make. They're like the Oreos or the cookies, I should say, the cookies and the pudding and stuff like that. And so I thought that would be kind of fun. And then maybe to make a sugar cookie, like oval brooch or something and like lean it up next to it. And so that was like my first idea. And I kind of put that away for a little bit. And as months went on and I did more projects, I felt a little bit more like I should try something bigger. I should try to do maybe the whole thing, but I wasn't quite sure, wasn't quite sold on that. And then one day I was looking at like the bakery stuff and I saw this silver like frosting type pen, or a food coloring pen, I think actually is a better way to describe that. And I thought it was really cool and I really wanted to use it. And then this painting popped back into my mind and it was like, that would be perfect for her hair. It really would. And so I decided to go with it and to try like to make the whole portrait. And I knew that I wanted to try to keep the plant 3D. And so in keeping the plant 3D with the portrait and stuff, like the hands are not perfect, obviously, because I wasn't able to, like, I used almond bark for this and I wasn't able to like use the food coloring because it like would bead off of this. So I wasn't able to do that. And so like the hands are not perfect and I acknowledge that. But I think that it's okay to share pieces that aren't perfect because it's really for the idea of it. And the, inspiration is a word I keep using. It's really to like do more than, well, for me, it was to do something more than I thought that I ever could and to encourage people. I'm not a trained baker and I'm not a trained artist. And so it's okay to show that, you're not always perfect with these things. In saying that, I don't think that I would try a portrait again, at least anytime soon. It was difficult, but I am happy with how this turned out, and it was fun to share. Okay, this is Old Stone Barn by Grant Wood, and I obviously chose this piece focusing on the chickens, and I made little cake pops. And at this time in my personal life, I was looking through this recipe book that I got about cake pops, and I had noticed a page with like these little yellow chicks and they were really cute, but it wasn't really anything like that we had here. But then I was reading a tip on that page and it was talking about after you make your cake pops and they dry, you can take them off of the stick and then make like little mini cakes. And I thought, that kind of got the ball rolling a little bit. I was like, I could form them a little bit differently and I could make them look like adult chickens instead of the baby one that was in the book. And I tried to match the colors as best as I could and kind of like the layout, whether they were laying or more perched up a little bit. And then kind of like the pattern that they are in the piece. And then I also chose this one to share because once again, it's not like trying to recreate an entire painting or piece of art every single time. You can pick out a detail and be inspired by that. And my last slide to share with you is What Else Is There by Hiromi Ayoda. And I really like this piece by her, and it's really lovely. It's I tried to match up as much as I could. This is one that I did try to make more as a one for one in a way. I have the yellow Jimmy sprinkle to match this part right here. And I've got as much of this as I could manage to put on. I've got my little dot here that's a food coloring pen, and a little bit of my glitter, edible glitter that it's kind of like a silver. I didn't want to use my metallic pen on this one because it's pretty matte here. So I just used like a tiny bit of that to give it a little bit of a different coloration in it. And I chose this one to share too because this piece is actually pretty large, and mine actually fits in the palm of my hand. And typically I do kind of work, like I make bigger pieces when I'm trying to do baking things. Like my Grant Wood cookie that I ended up making was like the size of a sheet of paper because I needed that much space to work with. And so this one, it was different for me to work on a smaller scale, and I enjoyed it, and I thought it turned out nicely, and complemented her piece well. And so I thought it would be a fun one to end our slides on. And if you have any questions or comments about any of these, you can feel free to email me at the museum at jfalco, JFALCO @crma.org. And feel free to ask me questions or have comments about anything that you have seen here. And we'll continue on with this for a while yet, and you can go back and look at some of our past ones. And thank you so much for watching my presentation, and thanks for giving me your time. Thank you.